is, you should have a long memory and hope the audience doesn't have. But then I was rather disheartened when Rajdeep came to me and said, CK, I've attended every humor workshop of yours and I've watched every video of yours and I'm looking forward to something new. This put a lot of pressure on me, and today I feel like Elizabeth Taylor's 8th husband. I know what I'm supposed to do, but how do I do it in an interesting and a new way? So, forget Rajdeep, at least I hope others will find it interesting and new. So, welcome to the session on Unleash Your Humor Quotient. We've all heard of an intelligence quotient, we've heard of a spiritual quotient, we've also heard of an emotional quotient. But what is this humor quotient I'm going to be talking about in a few minutes from now? More importantly, what credentials do I have to talk about humor? I'm not a great contest winner. Apart from a couple of contests, I think I have not participated in many contests. What credentials do I have? Now, many years ago, when I did my engineering in MIT Manipal, I was a part of the debating team, and we won a huge debating competition in Varkara or Vadike in Coorg. My partner was Siddharth Reddy, who went on to become the private secretary to Mr. Rajiv Gandhi, and both of us were supposed to go and receive the shield. The hall was massive, and Siddharth Reddy was a gigantic person. And when his name was announced, when our names were announced, Siddharth Reddy walked in the center like a colossus. And I was such a nervous wreck that I started squeaking like an apology. I started walking by the side just to avoid everybody's eyes. And then I distinctly hear one member from the audience telling, look at the difference between two speakers. This guy is walking like a majestic elephant, and that guy is speaking like a mouse. And then I had a friend called Dr. Ashlata Pai, who was a psychiatrist. She said, CK, public speaking is not for you. You suffer from anxiety neurosis, so don't take it public speaking. That's the exact words. I'm glad I did not listen to her advice, because today I make my bread, butter, jam, pudding, custard, mustard, everything from public speaking. And one redeeming feature is, whatever I do, I'm always known for the kind of humor that I inject. Once again, it is not clowning. I'm not going to talk about clowning around or simply crack jokes to make people laugh. But how can I make my message more memorable using humor? And you don't have to look very far for inspiration. Our own club has produced such amazing speakers. Anisha Raskina was a member of here. She was giving an icebreaker. She came and said, the man of my dreams, I don't want him to come on a white horse and all that. Just to BMW with me. And many years later, I still remember this icebreaker. Because remember, many times icebreaker tends to be a chronological thing. Solomon Grundy, born on Monday, listened on Tuesday, married on Wednesday, and buried on Friday or whatever. I didn't give the link. Anyway, but this was something remarkable. And yet another member came and said, my father outsources punishment to my mother, but my mother does not outsource her love and affection to anybody. Our past president, TChendilKumar Joseph. I simply cannot forget. Not only did they have humor, it makes your message memorable. So what I'm going to do now is, I'm not going to spend too much time, just 10 minutes to tell you about the techniques that I've learned, and then I'd like to invite the audience to come here, and I fully endorse Bosco's views that in a Toastmasters club, we should get opportunity to speak. Otherwise, I cannot even get the value out of the meeting. So I'll see how many of you can come here and take part, hopefully, in the time. Where's the time management? I'd asked for 25 plus 10, but please, 10 minutes to give me a seat, because I want audience interaction. I'm sure all of us know what our founder said. We learn best in moments of enjoyment. Think of any activity that you do. If there is an element of fun involved, the learning is much more sincere. And when I did some research on the word school, I was amazed to find that school has this origin from a Greek word called skol, which means leisure. But do our schools resemble leisure? No. They look more like concentration camps. That's the unfortunate thing. But if learning is done in a playful manner, the learning is much more permanent. If they can talk about school that way, so why not public speaking? Why not? Christine Clifford is a person who was afflicted with cancer, and these are the words that she said. She's still today fights cancer by combating not only with medicines but also with humor. She has a tremendous sense of humor, and for the past 30 years, she's been not only cheering herself but also adding value to a lot of others. At a party, someone offered her a cigarette. She said, "No thanks, I already have cancer." To laugh at her own self is not easy. Please remember, everything is funny as long as it is happening to somebody else, not when it happens to yourself, right? There's a nice book which I'll detail much later, which talks about. I also used to think, talking about humor, some people think it is frivolous, clowning around or something. But in this book, a very well-researched book, they've interviewed thousands of executives in MNCs, Fortune 100 companies, and they have distinctly proved that an element of fun and humor has added to the productivity of the organizations. That's when they really decided it's worth talking about humor, because it is not a funny business, it's a very, very serious business. And so I just want to tell Aniket, you're legitimized if you come in a suit and talk, because it has become serious business. What are the benefits? Very quickly. What are the benefits of using humor? Yes, it immediately builds a link with people. Many of you may not have noticed me or may not have interacted with me, but when I came and opened with that Elizabeth Taylor quip, at least I made you smile, and immediately you start thinking, okay, let's listen to this guy now. At least you get that feeling of one. Great. Anything else?
It clears away the drowsiness.
Yes, drowsiness. First thing is it makes you awake, and also it makes the message much more memorable. And that's the power of humor, right? Yeah. Yes. You can actually change the tone of the meeting. Everybody is so serious. Somebody comes and cracks some relevant humor, and completely the thing changes. That is the power of humor. But why don't we do it more often? Why are our speeches so serious? Everybody imagines themselves to be the agent of doom. Everybody comes out with a lot of pontificating. Do this, moral science. Preaching from the pedestal. Why do we do that? Why do we think that if you have to make an impact, you always have to start hemming and hawing and all? Why does it happen? What are the barriers in using humor? Yeah?
Safer to do.
Decorum, yeah, exactly. Humor, if it is not used in a proper manner, yes, it leads to lack of decorum. Here again, I want to clarify between wit and humor. Wit punctures, whereas humor nurtures. You can easily hurt somebody, like this college girl. There was this roadside Romeo who went and told a girl, "I think we met somewhere before." She said, "Yeah, that's why I don't go there anymore." That is wit. Really, But then how does humor nurture a relationship? Mark Twain was taking a walk in a London park, and there was a stiff upper-lip British gentleman who came in, and Mark Twain immediately said, "Hello, good morning." And the gentleman got upset and said, "How can you wish good morning? We've never met before." Mark Twain did not say anything. Next morning, he came across the same gentleman. He said, "Good morning, I think we met yesterday." He could not hide a smile, and he reached out his hand. This is what I call my humor nurturing a relationship. Right. So, what are those some simple techniques? The first question is, where do I begin? Do not miss any opportunity to take part, any assignment. It can be a simple thing like a time management. In our own club, Dr. Omar Sharma, he was an excellent speaker, amazing control of the language. She was once a time manager, and do you know how she started? There was an actress called Mae West who said, "I've been on a calendar but never on a time." But in back in Toastmasters, we always respect people who are on time. And then she proceeded to that. Very simple. But she brought about a change in that. So any opportunity that you get, try to use relevant humor and not come and crack some jokes, then you will not be taken seriously. If it can make a point, that is what I mean by relevant humor. So start with the simple definitions, one-liners, which are going to be much more useful, rather than coming out with some loftiness. Take a proverb. The classic example is somebody says, man does not live by bread alone. Somebody says, yeah, he eats butter. There's a small twist. An apple a day keeps the doctor away. Somebody gets up and says, an onion a day keeps everybody away. talking about oral hygiene, how to brush your teeth, something like that. So if you can just take some definition and use this in your speech and then twist it, that can actually create some impact in it. So just like what our friend Ravi Kumar talked about the British. If I were to talk about the British, maybe because I have some experience, I'd start by saying, the British have a very pompous way of speaking English, whereas Americans are very, very casual. There was a London tobacconist shop, a cigar shop, and an American tourist walks in, and the salesman says, "And what is your desire, sir?" Very pompous. The American tourist says, "My desire is to kiss the queen, but what I need is a cigar." The difference between. So what happens is, at least people will go back with that kind of a lesson. So try to use something relevant in your speech, and then it will add more value. There is something called geometry of humor. I'm not going to elaborate with examples because I want you to take part in this exercise. First thing is, start with yourself. Any joke that is aimed at yourself is the least offensive, and nobody's going to be affected by this. But if I start making fun of somebody in the audience, obviously you're going to get upset and say, "What is this guy talking about?" So, harmless, poke at yourself, not an issue. Second, compare and contrast. Have two people comparing, and then compare and contrast. And the third is the power of three, which is what Aniket Singh did very well. Chinese, Japanese, Hindi. Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara, Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost. There seems to be some sanctity attached to the power of three, so use that power very well. We also call this as the build and burst. You build up a story, and finally it has to burst. But be careful, the burst better be good. If the burst is not good, then all this building up will fall flat. So that's very, very important. And the most important in the power of three is, can you give an element of surprise? Recently, one of my friends sent me an SMS. Just to prove his love, he swam the deepest ocean, climbed the highest mountain, and crossed the hottest desert. And his wife divorced him because he was never at home. It's an anticlimax, right? So there is a surprise at the end. So you have to produce that surprise, which is what Aniket Singh tried very well. Today in business presentations, you are using a lot of images, multimedia. Nobody goes and gives an oration. So use cartoons or any kind of a message very, very effectively to add or to amplify your point. And I'm just going to show you some of this. Here's an advertisement for church. There are some questions that can't be answered by Google. So where do you walk in when you don't find your answers on Google? Come to the church. Rather than telling people about God, this is a nice way to catch youngsters, isn't it? You speak their language. I found this in a metro subway in New York. I think I'll go here and see. A is the first letter of the alphabet. There are 25 more. The Chicago Public Library has all of them in some very interesting combination. Advertisement for a library. But don't you think this is much more persuasive than talking about we have so many volumes and things like that? And the next cartoon, I'm sure all of us would have seen, and some of you would have used it in your speeches also. Never give up. Even if I give a lecture for 1 hour, it will not have the same effect as this picture, isn't it? When you're using your project speeches, since we already have a facility, use such cartoons very effectively and say, friends, never give up. Look at that frogs, whatever it is. Yeah? So this has a tremendous effect. Now, I'll also show you, how many of you like Pani Puri? Most of you? Now, what I'm going to show you is a PowerPoint presentation which won the first prize in an international competition to illustrate Pani Puri for an audience which does not know anything about Pani Puri. Just look at the use of humor, subtle humor, minimum text, and see how this won the first prize. Oh, sorry, this is different. Something about office. Now you want to take a ticket to your boss, maybe you can use this well. Be careful what you write. My wonderful, charming, brilliant boss reads everyone's email. Because make sure that the boss doesn't read this way. Metaphorically, Mother Earth. User center, the language of the geeks, right? Plugins and extension. Upgrade to shave body. Can be saved anywhere. Web 2.0. This is the one I like best. Spicy water reboots your digestive system. Wow. Find more of this in www. So what I'm saying is, look out for something like this, and I use this not as a frivolous exercise, but I give some training sessions on PowerPoint presentations. What sort of fonts to use, what sort of text to use. I use this very effectively because a very important message conveyed in a very, very simple and effective manner. 10 minutes, 10 minutes up? Yeah, 3 minutes. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to leave you with a technique called point, humor, point. Which means if the audience thinks you're trying to be funny, definitely they're not going to laugh. But if it comes unexpected, then it has a tremendous effect. My favorite example is, Bosco said, before, Watson and Bosco, both of them said, before you come for the meeting, analyze your audience. Audience analysis is very important. You may not want to make some sentences which may desensitize the audience. And to add the effect, I also say preparing for a speech without the audience in mind is like you writing a love letter to whomsoever it may concern. Very, very difficult, isn't it? So use that and then come across. Or can you give a very powerful example, then the concept is very clear in your mind. Now, Bosco was an MC in one of the inter-club contests. He was talking about strength, weaknesses, opportunities and threats. You know what is the SWOT analysis, right? Most of the students. Now how does he explain this? And then he comes up with a brilliant example. My strength is my wife. My weakness is my neighbor's wife. My opportunity is when he is out of town. My threat is when I am out of town. I've never been able to forget this ever since you said this 5 years ago. So that's what I'm saying is, a very effective example makes you remember even some tough concepts in a nice manner. So can you use humor effectively in such manner? So what I want you to do is, some of you at least to come and try here, you must make a point, but amplify that point with a one-liner, humor, or an anecdote, and then come back and once again conclude with the point. So that's the challenge. Please remember, this is not an exercise to make you full-time comedians. That's not the idea. Each time you come here and speak, can you make a difference? Can you make your message memorable by adding relevant humor? That's the only point of this exercise. Right? So I want some of you to take up the challenge. Keep thinking. Until then, I want any two of you to come here for a very simple exercise. Anybody who can speak fluently, or anybody who can... please come. Please come. Good. I want at least 4 or 5 of you to keep working on the anecdotes. I don't mind even if you go out and then prepare and come back, but it should be, you should not just come and crack a joke. You should say, this is my point, and add that humor as a supporting point, and then come out with the humor, and then come out with the point. Right? Name? Ram Prasad. Sanjay. Now, I'm going to give a situation. Which is the latest movie that you guys want to go?
Want to go?
Yeah. Let's say Harry Potter?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, Harry Potter has been released today, and somehow Ram Prasad has managed to get 2 tickets for the first night first show. He plans to take Sanjay. Last minute, what happens? Ram Prasad gets a call from his girlfriend and says, look here, I want to come for the movie with you. You somehow try to shake off Sanjay. Now these guys are going to have a conversation on this subject. you are somehow trying to dissuade him from coming with you, and you have to insist that I have to come today only. So what's the catch here? The dialogue will be some kind of an antakshari. You will start the sentence with A, you will start your sentence with B, C onwards, till you will end up with Z. Audience will not prompt. It is very easy to talk when you are sitting there, not when you come here. So please allow that. Is this clear? But it has to be quick, you should not wait too long for this. The subject is, you somehow want to shake him off, but you are saying, no, I have to come and watch the movie. Is that okay? So the sentence should start with A. Loudly, yeah. Yeah, start.
Always movies are watched best later. Why?
No, you start with B. The next sentence with B, yeah.
Okay. Let's stop it. Anyways, go ahead. But
No problem.
I want to go to this movie.
B should start with B. The sentence should start with B. Except first start, but yeah.
I want to go to the movie today. Cancel it, man. I want to go with you. But I want to go with you.
No.
Don't you think that's an odd idea? Every time.
Go backwards, sir.
For God's sake, I have to come with you. Go away, man. How can you do that to me? I am me, that's why. Just for one day. Karnataka is like that. Lord, please let me go with this guy. Man, you are dangerous. No, I am not. Uh-oh. Please, I beg of you. Queue somewhere else, not with me. Again. Rest assured, why are you asking me like this? Sanjay, you are amazing. Take it from me, I am not. Up until now, I thought you were wonderful. Very well. I will see you soon. Welcome is not the word I will use today. X. X and X. Xmas seems to have come early for you. Z. Zero tolerance is more.
Brilliant. This is very challenging even for established speakers because we have to come out on the spot. You notice that Sanjay, initially there was a train, but after that he picked up very well, and both the speakers did amazingly well. Normally speakers get stuck at X, and one of them did what one of you prompted. He said, Xerox the ticket, all three will go. Anyway, awesome, I think that. This is what helps you to give a presence of mind. And if you're able to add this humor, I think that is amazing. I think the toughest form of humor is responding immediately to a crisis. Reparting. That's very, very difficult. In fact, I've been trying my best. Very recently, only recently, I've been successful. I was conducting a training session, and behind, the coffee maker went up in flames. It was a minor accident, nothing serious, but the audience was slightly distracted. So I immediately went up and said, so far, my speeches have ignited human minds. This is the first time it has ignited an object. So what happened was people, it got them away, they had a smile, and then even I was happy with my own response. But it takes time. It takes at least months of hard work and preparation. Yes, quickly, can we have some of you come here, mention an incident or what you call a point, humor, and then a point. Quickly. And you can use this in your speeches regularly. Quick, this is supposed to be voluntary. Yeah, please come. Give me a round of applause. Your name?
Good evening, Toastmasters and guests.
Yeah.
Good evening. Today my role is I am the timer for today's session. You all know, if you cannot manage time, you will not be able to manage your life also. So I am here to help you to manage your life. I will be the timer for today's session.
No, but where's the humor? I don't want to do something, but can you do something? Manage your life? Okay. Okay. I thought something should have been added so that people can. Yeah. Okay. So good. Yeah, please come.
Toastmasters, myself Naveen for the new guest. I'll be sharing with you a real life incident which happened just some 2 months back when I got placed in HP. Me and my friend, after getting placed in HP, we went to his place in Chennai. There was my friend's grandmother. She was not aware of all these software companies. Both of us went and we spoke to her and like, okay, my friend got placed in Accenture, one guy got placed in Yahoo, and she asked, okay, friends like, okay, leave about all your friends, tell me where you both of you got placed. We told, Grandma, luckily we got placed in a very good company called HP. And she started staring at us and like, she scared us and she was like, totally angry on us and she was about to beat us. We were not knowing the reason why she was doing that. She started telling, hey Naveen and Manoj, you studied in English medium school, you went to college in Bangalore, you did your engineering just to work with that HP company. We were like amazed, oh come on, it's a multinational company and they're paying us a very big paycheck. What's wrong in working in such a company? And suddenly the grandma told, hey, HP is a petrol one, and what do you want to do?
Just give us one point.
What I was like trying to prove was, today we find resemblance in the names. Maybe the name of a software company resembling to the petrol pump. Actually, it was a Tamil version which I converted into English version, so it would have brought it was actually a censored English version. So it didn't bring up.
Yeah, excellent. So maybe Naveen can use this by telling what is the difficulty we have when we communicate. We assume that people will understand, but definitely you have to be very clear in the context because people can completely misunderstand your message. Excellent. Yeah, right? Any one more and then we will close it here. Yeah, come Watson, please. The master himself.
Of late, I've been helping my daughter in doing all her homework. So every time she submits her handwriting book, there was a note that said, please allow the child to write on her own. It really baffled me. I told her, did you tell your teacher that I'm helping you? She said, no daddy, I did not tell the teacher that you're helping me. But then I asked her, then what did you tell her? Then she says, I write on my own, but my dad holds my hand. That's the best part of it. I learned the biggest lesson in life is that whenever I speak, people say I speak good. But I feel I don't speak, it's God who speaks through me. Thank you.
Once again, simple acts of communication can always get into much better reach to the audience if you are able to illustrate with a very valid example. I'm extremely sorry the time is running out, so I'll be happy to do one. In fact, we are doing a longer session organized by Powers, and Arun is also going to be there on the 28th. Maybe we will try to make it slightly more elaborate, give more chances for you. But the most important thing is never lose that cheer in life. The first thing is if you make people happy, at least if you make one person go today with a smiling feeling, make him or her forget her worries, I think you have achieved something which even great people have not been able to achieve. And that's the greatest pleasure that I get when someone Sabi says, CK, I went home light-hearted and it gave me a fresh perspective in life. And don't ever forget, my friends, smile is the second best thing you can do with your lips.